Guys, today I'm going to give you some tips and tricks having to do with your brake pads, and it doesn't really matter what kind of vehicle you're working on. This is mainly about your calipers, your float pins on your calipers, your clips for your pads, and resurfacing the pads. It sounds funny, but bear with me, okay? First of all, my pads were squealing because I got brand new rotors, and I thought I'd bought brake grease for the back sides of the pads, and evidently I don't know what I did with it because it was a little while before I got around to putting them on. So now they're squealing, okay? And it's not the pads, it's the back sides of the pads where the caliper presses on the pads. When you go to stop, it makes the pads vibrate at an like a supersonic frequency, and it makes us squeal, obviously. So when they sell you brake grease, it's not for the pads to grab on the rotors, obviously. Though working at the parts store, I've seen people do it. There's always that one guy, right? So, or girl, whatever. And anyway, a lot of times nobody will suggest it, and a lot of your parts guys, they don't know how it works, so they won't suggest it either. But basically what happens is the backside, see where the pistons press on the caliper, little circles, big circles around the little circles. Anyways, you can see it shine a little in the light, and that's where it rubs. And then when they get it vibrating, you can't see them vibrate, but they're vibrating at a supersonic frequency and make that squeal. So what we do is we put grease on the backside before we put the pads back in, or after, before we put the caliper on, and it takes away that friction of the rubbing. Another thing, these pads have a good bit of miles on them, but they're still good, still, relatively thick. And if these were cheap pads, I'd get more pads, but these are actually $60-something pads. They're carbon metallic racing pads, and the squealer, the height of the squealer is way lower, so I ain't even worried about it. Matter of fact, it's still got the groove in it for the water groove or whatever. But I made a video earlier and I ran out of space, so you can't see it, but these were glazed over really bad, and there's a trick. Like, say you bought new rotors, or you got your rotors machined, and now you want to make sure your pads are ready to go. But say your pads were good, but they're glazed over. Well, what do? Right? A lot of people will say sandpaper, and sandpaper works, but it'll take forever. The best thing to do is flip them upside down on the concrete right here, smooth concrete, and just resurface them. And just keep checking them until it's a nice matte finish, and you can tell they'll look like brand new ones out of the box. You can even feel it lightly if they're semi-metallic pads. You can feel it, all the little shards of metal. It's like sandpaper, and that's your biting force, right? So I got brand new rotors on here, and I needed to resurface my pads, which I've already done. So next thing to check is your clips. Never hurts if you don't have new clips and you're just checking something. Go ahead and clean these out. They're stainless usually, and see, they're nice and shiny under all that crap. And you can get a wire brush and clean the grooves out, or just pop the clips out and clean them and pop them back in, because what'll happen is if it gets too much buildup, your pads will stick a little and drag. So obviously you don't want that. Um, these are kind of annoying to pop in sometimes. But, alright, see that? Where they go in right here? If that pad is sticking, when you go to stop and it grabs, you let go, there's no force to pull these back out. No springs or anything. They just kind of sit there. But if they're sticking real bad, they'll stay jammed in there, okay? So you need to keep these clean. These clips clean. Or get new clips. The little hardware kits, you can get new clips by themselves for like $5 or less. But always keep an eye on that. And then, like I said, with the caliper off, you can grease these with them already on there. That way you're not trying to handle them with them greasy. Trust me, I've done it. It's aggravating. Just save yourself the trouble. I had to learn the same way. So, alright, I'm gonna pop these back in real quick. Let's see. Step by step, we'll get there, right? Incrementally. They're, like I said, they're really annoying. But, hold on. I got them in. Now, the next thing that you need to check are your pins. Floating pins, okay? Let me show you. Alright, see the calipers? Gonna sit right here. And they sit on these pins right here. You see how it's springy? It's really the rubber spring in it. It doesn't have a spring. But they float so that whenever they go to grab, it allows the caliper to center itself over the rotor perfectly. Now, if you happen to see, when you work on these, a pad wearing unevenly on top or bottom, or one pad worn out a lot more than the other one, then you need to check these pins. They'll get stuck. The heat build up over time, the grease will dry out, and the grease will kind of harden and cake up, and these will get really sticky. Or I've seen them where they rusted and got stuck, where the boots were bad. And it's another thing to check. These little rubber boots are very important to keep water and moisture out and dirt, or they'll get stuck. So what I do, I will just go ahead and pull them out. All you do is slide them out and make sure not to break the rubber. You can get rubbers if something happens for cheap at the auto parts store, but make dang sure that you can, okay? And that you do. And get you some cleaner to clean these with. And I'm just going to go ahead and get all the old grease off because I don't need it, okay? I'm just going to go ahead and clean them. I already did the other one earlier, so this one's kind of a demonstration, more or less, but let's see. Get all that junk off here. Now, some of these pins, the top one wasn't this way, but this pin actually is beveled. I don't know if you can see it very well. Let's see. It's got a flat end. Actually, it's three. There's three beveled sides. So when I go to put it back in, I'm going to have to rotate it until I find the right spot and it drops on in. So, keep that in mind. If they don't go in, pull it back out and check it out. It may be grooved in a certain way. Don't try to just beat them in, but word to the wise, Boots look good. So, just run some more grease up on them, and they should be okay. Let's clean some more of this off first. Okay. And then the grease will protect them from rust, from the moisture, So, learn anything yet? And on my other video, unfortunately, I meant to tell you guys, on these pads, there's a rating code where on the inside edge, it'll have a bunch of numbers and junk, and then 2 letters. Usually it's a EF, a FE, GF, something like that. The higher the letter, the better the braking performance. And the reason there are 2 is the first letter is your cold braking, and then the second letter is your faded braking performance, like once they get really hot. Okay? So, my pads, okay, OEM ones are usually FF, and the higher the letter, the better. But they're usually FF or FE, so they'll fade a little once they get hot, but they're still good. And mine are actually FG. They're racing pads, carbon metallics, actually. So, they actually brake better when they get hot, believe it or not. And the reason they do that is for track. And believe me, if you knew how I drive, that's, it's worth it. I've actually had these on 2 vehicles, the Turbo Forester and now this. And I know I've put at least 20,000 miles on it in this alone, so they still look that good. So that's, they're really good brakes that I got at O'Reilly's, believe it or not. And so, that's the tip of the day, I guess. No matter the brand, that is a standard rating that I guess the National Safety Administration or whatever, Traffic Administration, that's your standard rating. So if you want to compare brakes through brands and stores or whatever, pop them out of the box and look at them. A lot of times you can pay less and get the same dang brakes or better. I've actually seen that in the store. But, go through them at work or whatever when I had free time. So check them out. You might learn something. Might save you a couple bucks. Or you may see that the ones you thought about getting may not be as good as you needed, and you want to get something a little different based on your driving style. So, especially towing or anything like that, you obviously want to go a little bit bigger on your hot braking performance, obviously. So, anyways, now you know. See, you learn something every day. So I'm going to pop these back in real quick. Be right back. Right, I'm back. Now, we got to get some back side of these pads here. So, really no science to this. Don't get it on the brake rotor. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. Really just don't get it on the brake rotor. But you can kind of tell the little circles where each piston on the caliper grabs onto it on the pad, and just kind of put you some grease in there, and it should work. It doesn't have to be a whole lot, because you don't want it caking up with brake dust and stuff either, but just something to keep there from being friction when it's rubbing, and it should be fine. Yeah, give me some more to this here. This backside here. Really doesn't take much either. It goes a long way. It's just a lot of surface area, but it's not, it doesn't have to be that thick. I'll mash some down into that little brake pad holes, I guess, just to kind of, there, it's whatever. These have been in and out 50 times. I wouldn't put any in the clips right here. I would just wire brush them. The stainless is really slick, But if you go putting brake grease in there, the brake dust is going to cake up in there and stick to it. If it's dry, it'll blow out as you drive. So, you know, words of wise, don't do that. Trust me. Guns are the same way, believe it or not. People, they love oiling them down, but then, you know, if they're shooting something with dirty powder, like a rimfire, like a 22, or black powder, or shotguns, dude, that powder is going to build up in there and just jam everything up if you don't clean it like 24/7. So that's not something that you want to do. But anyhow, we can throw this caliper back on real quick. Oh, careful with my. Now I don't have to press these pistons back in on the caliper because the nobody went and mashed the brake pad while I had them off. I probably would punch them in the face. But also, I don't have new pads, so nothing's changed. It should line right back up the way it was before. I might have to tap it just a little bit, but it should pretty much go back on. Yeah, you see, lined up. And I have to wiggle it around in there a little, but it'll situate eventually. Now, these rotate, right? Let's see if I can get you where we're at here. The pins rotate because made into the caliper, there's a flat spot that sticks out that'll catch, right? And it makes it where when you turn the bolt, these aren't turning on you on the backside. A lot of cars are like that, so be mindful of that. This one's already lined up, right? So, let's see. Tap it in. I think that it's, there it is. Yeah. You may have to kind of move it around, up and down and all around until it catches, but you'll find it. I don't mean to sound like a Bob Ross painting, but, you know, it's all good. This brake hose is kind of in the way, but zippity-doo, right? Alright, let's see. Alright, see what it did. It spun around and it got caught, but it's not lined up on that spot that I told you about, right? Alright, so I gotta find it. Best way to do it at the moment is probably going to be doing it where it did touch, down here, and that'll help it with the other one. You just got to kind of play around with them sometimes, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just feel it out. You want to make sure that it lines up good, that they're touching. See this gap here? It's not on there all the way. It's see now with that one on there good, I can kind of figure this one out. I'm gonna have to back the bolt out without jamming it. You know, if it's not going all the way in good, you know, it shouldn't get tight until it's tight. You know, so it may be not lined up perfect yet, and that's, you know, take your time with it and play with it, because if it's doing that, okay, see, I rotated it out and it slipped on up to it, right? That flat spot, notch, and now it's lined up. So I'm gonna hold it out as I run the bolt in, hold that against it so that it stays caught on that piece, okay? As I turn the bolt, so I can get it started good. I don't know if you can see. Let's see here. That kind of helps. So I'm going to hold this. All it took was my finger, actually, while I run the bolt in a little and get it started. And even, because with all that slack, it'll push back and then rotate itself off of that notch. And I need it lined up on that notch. Okay? Until it pulls it into it and it can't go anywhere. Now I think we're good. Alright. I'm sorry I don't have, do a lot of the fancy stop and go and fast forward and all that, but maybe one day, but at least now you can actually see most of what I'm doing, I guess. What's ironic is it's easier to see in here on the camera, thanks to the lighting and seat adjusting, than I can see. So it's kind of funny. But that's it, man. It's ready to go. I didn't hit it hard because I have a freaking 5 pound, 3 pound. So if I did hit it hard, yeah, they're not going anywhere, trust me. Another thing, when you do your brakes, you don't have to bleed them. Even with new pads, even when you master calipers back in, you don't have to bleed them. If you don't open this right here, or take the calipers off to where air gets in the line, you don't have to do anything. Okay, that's the only for when you make a break in the line and a lot of air can get in. Okay, if that makes sense. So that's not necessary. So anyway, we're ready. We can examine some of the other stuff, and I wanted to look at this because my tie rod or something's got slack, because I've had 3 alignments and it's still something's iffy with it, and we've been trying to figure it out. So it turns out the tie rod in, I think, maybe not outer but inner, may be bad or going out, or the outer. We're gonna see.